Okay, everyone. Everyone did get 1 and 2 correct, so I'm going to not review those and move on to number 3. So you are evaluating the function at 3. So I'm going to do f of 3, which would be 3 minus 2 squared. And what the mistake that many people made was they did not put 3 minus 2 in parentheses and wound up with -1 squared, and I think that threw you off. This should be 1 squared, which is 1. Okay, part B, f of -2 is -2 minus 2 squared, which would be -4 squared. Now you have to be careful here. 4 is not what's being squared. -4 is being squared. And -4 times -4 is positive 16. So it may have just been a little mistake like that. F of 2 would be 2 minus 2 squared. Quantity 2 minus 2 squared. 2 minus 2 is 0. 0 squared is 0. What are the values of x for which f of x equals 25? So we're going to say 25 equals x minus 2 squared and solve for x. And most people did this part right. You took the square root, but the square root of 25 is not just 5. It could be -5. So you have 2 answers here. X minus 2 equals 5 or x minus 2 equals -5. So that's going to give me these 2 solutions. So x equals 7, x equals -3. Okay, so that's number 3. If you missed any of those, just write that on, you could do it on a new sheet of paper, you could do it on the original. As long as you make the correction and upload that, I will give you the points. Number 4, f of 0 would be 0 squared minus 8 times 0 minus 48. Most people got this right. So that would be 0 minus 0 minus 48, -48. So there's your y-intercept. What values of x will make f of x 0? Okay, so we're going to factor. We're going to replace f of x with 0. And let me do that in the notebook. So your x squared term and your constant term always go in opposite corners. And then I use the diamond. You don't have to, but if you're not getting these right, maybe start using it. That means you multiply these to get the term on top. The term on the bottom is your x term. You're looking for factors of -48 that add up to -8. So if I multiply 12 and 4, that gives me 48, and that would add up to -8 if, so 12x and 4x, and I know one of these has to be negative, and I want the 12 to be negative because I want them to add up to -8. So -12x and -8x. It's going to factor into x minus 12 and x minus 8 equals 0. So using zero product property, x equals 12 or x equals 8. So those are my x-intercepts. Okay, and then it said, what do your solutions tell you about the graph of f of x? So you know you've got x-intercepts. Let's just do a rough sketch. X-intercepts at 12, 0, and 8, 0. And you know you've got a y-intercept of negative 48. Oh wait, something's off. I think I messed up. Oh, that 8 is positive, or that 4 is positive, and I put an 8. I'm rushing. That's a positive 4. Okay. Okay, so x, this should be x plus 4. Sorry about that. So x equals negative 4. So my x-intercepts are, let's just move everything over, positive 12 and negative 4. And my y-intercept is negative 48. Way down here, 0, negative 48. That's not the vertex, it's just the y-intercept. Vertex is going to be over here somewhere. So let's see, negative 48. So then you could say that you know the graph opens upward. That would be one thing you could determine from looking at your x-intercepts and your y-intercept. Okay, number 5. A lot of people missed 5. Let me write it right here. Okay, we've got f of x equals x squared minus x. And we're figuring out f of a minus 4. So we're going to substitute a minus 4 in the place of x. So that's going to give me, I'm going to pause and put my lunch on. Okay, so a minus 4 squared is a squared minus 8a plus 16. And then be careful here, you've got minus a plus 4, and then just combine like terms. So could be, a lot of people had something other than 20 right here, so it may have been that this was the issue. So be careful with a negative in front of parentheses. Number 6 was a function like the ones we were doing when we did that Jamboard. Okay, we're going to identify the asymptotes and are there any restrictions on the domain. Create a table of values, include at least 10 values in your table showing what takes place near the asymptote. Graph it, labeling key features, asymptote, x and y intercepts, min, max endpoints, and where it's increasing or decreasing. So I know that there's going to be an asymptote at 2, because if I plug in 2, I'm going to have 1 divided by 0. So I'm going to pick some values that are close to 2 in either direction. So maybe like 1.9, 1.8, and then going in this direction. And I can't switch over to the computer, so I'm just going to quickly use Desmos to get these values. So I am getting a new tab with Desmos, and I am typing in this equation. And then I'm using that little settings wheel And I'm just going to type in my own values. Okay, so at 0, it's at negative 0.5. At 1, it's at negative 1. And if you need help with Desmos, just let, you can always work on that. Okay, 2 is undefined, so that's where you have your asymptote. And I would be okay with you doing this one on Desmos and sharing, like we did in class, sharing the table and the graph, just using that. So, but you do want to label that you've got an asymptote at x equals 2. You also have, let's just do a sketch. So at positive 2, you have an asymptote. You also have an asymptote at y equals 0, because this is never going to turn out to be 0. I can't do 1 divided by something and get 0. So let's see, I'll do that in another color. Okay, and then you could just graph some of these points. At 3, the graph is at 1. At 1, it's at negative 1. And you know the general shape of the graph is going to look like this. So you could just say it is decreasing everywhere. I guess we should say except at x equals 2. So you're going downhill if you're going this way, you're going downhill if you're going this way. At 2, it does not exist. So my domain would be all real numbers except 2. That's all you had to put for domain. Table of values, it said to include 10. I don't know if that's 10. We could just put a few more. Graph it, asymptotes, x and y intercepts, min and max, endpoints, increasing, decreasing. Well, there's no maximum or minimum because this graph goes on forever and ever, down to negative infinity. It goes up to positive infinity this way. So no max or min. I didn't put the y-intercept on there. If I plug in a 0 here, my y-intercept is right here. 0, negative 0.5. You could add that to your graph. What else? Axis of symmetry. You've got an axis right here. I'm going to say let's not worry about that too much. Oh, I'm looking at the next one. Never mind. X and y intercepts. There's no x-intercepts. There's no endpoints. I think we're done. Okay, that's it. And I'm going really fast because I'm going to try and have this ready for today. I had some technical issues since Sunday. So here, number 7, graph it, label the key features, all that good stuff, domain and range. So for a quadratic, I know many of you probably use Desmos on this, that's fine, but you should know how to do it with or without that calculator. So I'm going to factor that. To get the x-intercepts. So I'm looking for factors of negative 6x squared that add up to positive 1. So that's going to be 3x and 2x. And I want the 1 to be positive, so let's make the 2 negative. So that's going to factor into x plus 3 and x minus 2. Whoops. And I am going to use zero product property. So x equals -3, x equals +2. By the way, you are not expected to be completely proficient in this until the next, I think it's chapter 3. So we're going to keep practicing on this with homework. So if you're feeling a little shaky on this, keep reviewing it with homework. Maybe join me for tutoring and let's practice some more. You should be proficient in soon with factoring, maybe a little rusty. So these are my x-intercepts. My y-intercept would just be f of 0, which would be -6. So y-intercept 0, -6. And I think I'll use some graph paper on this one. Okay, so I know it's opening upwards because that y-intercept is 0, -6, and it's crossing the x-axis at -3 and +2. Okay, that's not my vertex, that's just the y-intercept. The vertex is going to be halfway between these two. So that's a distance of 5. Half of 5 is 2.5. So if I go 2.5 from this direction or 2.5 from this direction, I'm going to land at -0.5. So I know my axis of symmetry is x equals -0.5. And I'm just going to plug that in for x. So f of -0.5, that's going to give me the coordinate of the vertex. I don't remember, but I don't think I saw too many people doing this. And I guess if you've got technology, I can see where you wouldn't find this necessary. But it's one of those things. You should know how to use technology to support your learning and not necessarily replace your learning. So let's see, -1/2 times -1/2 is going to be +1/4. And then -1/2 would be -1/4. -6 would be -6 1/4. So -6.25. Okay, so then my vertex is at -0.5 and -6.25. So right, let's see, this is -6, so right about here. Okay, got our x-intercepts, our y-intercepts, our line of symmetry. Minimum, this is our minimum. What was it, -0.5 and -6.25. Okay, vertical stretch or shrink, there is none. Domain and range. Okay, a lot of people put that the domain was from -3 to 2, but you can plug in any value into this equation and get an answer. So your domain is actually all real numbers. There's nothing that's going to give you an answer that's undefined. There's no fraction, there's no square root, all real numbers. Your range is restricted because this graph doesn't go below -6.25. And your range is all your outputs. So your range is from 6.25, including -6.25 to infinity. Okay, I know I'm going super fast, so if it's too fast, join me for tutoring if you need a little bit further. Most people got 8 and 9 right. Domain -2 to 3, including -2. Well, this one includes -2. This one includes -2. and it goes to 3. It's kind of hard to see here, but it does. And then this one does not go from -2 to 3. This goes, for a domain, it goes from -3 to +2. So if you're struggling with domain and range, domain is all your inputs. Here's all the x values. That's an open circle, closed circle, closed circle. Okay, so these two have inputs from -2 to 3, including -2 with the closed circle, not including 3 with the open circle. This one does not. So it was 1 and 2. For 9, range is -3 to 3, including both of those. Well, that's going to fit right here. That's going to fit right here, but not right here. This is from this range. These outputs go from +1 to +3. So it would have been 2 and 3. Okay, and then for 10 and 11, you may have just made an algebraic mistake. So I'll do those really quickly. I didn't see anybody get rid of the fractions, and I'm going to get rid of the fractions to make life a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute 3/4. So that would give me 6/4 x plus 15/4 equals 5x plus 60. And then I'm just going to multiply by 4. If I do that on the left, it'll get rid of these fractions. So that'll give me 6x plus 15. And then I have to do it on the right. And then you're just getting x by itself. So I always look at the x terms and get rid of the smaller one. Subtract 240. So -225 equals 14x, and then just divide both sides by 14. Okay, and then number 10, or what, that was number 10. 11 was let's see, that's going to be 12 minus 6x minus 2 minus 2x. So what do we have here? -8x. 12 minus 2 is 10. Subtract 8 from both sides. Add 8x to both sides. Divide by 13. Okay.